you once again for tuning in. Once again, you are watching videos of a guy who is learning. Who is that guy learning? Me. I am not an expert, but chances are if I have posted a video, I'm only going to post videos of me doing something successfully. But anyway, today's topic of learning is functions, and I got one to work. So it would be nice to type out the code and record that on screen and play it back at 2 or 3 times the speed, but unfortunately I'm just not that good, so I had to work on this and make sure it was working first before I showed it on camera. Right or wrong, here is the process of how I went about doing this. So previously I have worked through some beginner books on Arduino, and Arduino is using C language, but it seems to have a unique format, semantic format, for lack of a better term, on how to do coding. And a lot of it is seemingly transferable over to MPLAB-X. Some of it is, some of it isn't. For instance, I don't think you can use pin mode or write delays in this format, and I don't think digital write is within the xc.h library, but I could be surprised somehow if maybe it was. So long story short, I took the code from an old Arduino sketch and thought, well, how can I modify it to make it acceptable for use in MPLAB-X IDE? I also YouTube searched for a tutorial on C programming functions, and ultimately this came in handy for troubleshooting some of the mistakes and error messages that were showing up in MPLAB. So Arduino has a void setup and a void loop in its IDE, and MPLAB conforms to C programming rules where it really makes use of a void main. So fine. I had the trace register set up for all the bits on my chip, and I just set the output bits to 0 just to begin. And I understand this is the simplest way to do it, just to write the flash function in, and then I added a delay, and here's the void flash down here in a separate function, void main being a function itself. So I had a few troubleshooting errors when I went to clean and build. Some of the errors went a little bit like this. I added a return type in here, something like that. I cleaned and builded. Now this was something that was specified in a C programming language tutorial to include both in the void main and in the void flash for the sake of using functions, but for reasons that maybe you, the viewer, might understand better than I do, putting a return type caused error messages. So I simply got rid of them. In specific, it said error void functions main should not return a value. So this is, I guess, unacceptable practice here. Also, watching a C programming tutorial on YouTube, it said that sometimes just the way code iterates one line at a time, the code is going to iterate through here, and it's going to come across this flash, and it won't recognize it in, say, a traditional library, either xc.h or even as a definition in stdio.h. It's not going to recognize flash. So based on the advice of a C programming language tutorial. It was recommended that I take this void flash that I created separately and copy it and paste it in at the top of the code. And this actually removed an error message that was getting generated. I will just redemonstrate that by deleting it and show what happens when I clean and build without the inclusion of that flash. So I am getting error messages. I won't read them all. I'll paste this back in, clean and build, and I'm no longer getting any of those red error messages. So I conclude that it's important to include your flash function, your void flash function, or any separate function you're creating. It's important to include it up here, is what I gather from my experience here. Also, I'm getting some other error message. Direct function call made with an incomplete prototype flash. Well, even though I'm getting a warning, I haven't fully deciphered what's wrong here, and the code seems to build and upload no problem. So I've yet to learn what this warning is about. I played around with the inclusion of this stdio.h library as to whether it was important or necessary, and it wasn't really. I could still clean and build and it would work fine. Like that. So methodically I will go through this once again. So I created a void flash. Actually, I created it down here, and because of good practice and because it's probably not included in a library, and when the code iterates through it doesn't understand what flash is, it's good practice to put it up here so that I guess C recognizes what you're doing. Then the void main, the tri-state registers for inputs and outputs on my particular chip, is configured in this SFR style, whatever you call it, and then I just set my output pins to low just because I just wanted them to be off. The LEDs attached to these GP0 and GP1. Then a very simple code. Flash is called. So I guess it jumps out of the void main and goes down to the separate flash where GP0 is sent high with a delay and then low. So it's a blink code. And then with a big long delay after that. Well, that's a lot of talking. But anyway, some of this is notes to myself, so I can learn for next time. So now I'm going to cut to my camera phone and just show that it works. And then I'm going to try and add a for loop within the flash to get some more blinking action going on.
Since my last video on the PIC10F200, I have modified this experimenter's platform with this little tiny PCB circuit, which I originally set up on a breadboard, which was just holding the end clear pin high, and then when I push this button, it sends it low and resets the code back to the beginning. So this is not very spectacular, but this LED on GP0 is doing exactly what it's been programmed to do. It's blinking at a slow rate because of the 3,000 millisecond delay I added in the code. So just showing that it does work. And my M-Clear circuit should set things right back to the beginning and get things blinking right after I push it. Sending this pin low doesn't do anything anymore.
Alrighty, so I was thinking I could spice things up here and make this code a little more interesting. I was thinking I could add a for loop in front of the flash function for 10 iterations, a little something like that. And I've got a need for speed, so I thought about reducing the delay time between the blinks. Ooh, I like that. And just indulge me for a moment, but I thought rather than one flash function, let's create another one. I'll call this one flash 1 and this one flash 2. So I'll have to make the necessary adjustments here and here, and I'll need another one of these here. Like in previous videos, I've had GP2 as an input pin, and I was making use of it. So I think I'll use it again, and I think I'll use it like this. As an input pin, if GP2 is high, then maybe I will flash this void flash 1, and if it's low, then I will flash this void flash 2. If GP2 is high, I'll use this function. If GP2 is low, I'll use this function. So to begin, I'll just wrap this for loop with the flash buried in here, nested, whatever you say, I don't know. I'm still learning the lingo, but I'll wrap it in there. And then I'll copy this whole thing and this has to be flash function 2. See if that works. And you can't see it, but I've got lots of error messages. Oh, I have a mistake with my curly braces in my functions. Something's going on here. Yes, I have to modify this to GP1 rather than GP0. Alright, just to go through things once again, even though it might be redundant, I've declared the void flash functions up here before the void main, just because I have come to learn that is good practice to do, because it's not included in any kind of library. So then C goes, okay, so you're going to use some flash functions. So you put them at the top. Then it goes into the void main. Tri-state register is set. The output pins I have currently configured as outputs, 2 of them, are set to low, so they're going to be off, not on. If GPIO bits GP2, which is an input pin I set, is high, equals 1, then for basically 10 times, flash function here, which sends GP0 high and low. If GP2, which is the input pin, is low, then flash this function, which is called flash2, which flashes a different output pin, which is GP1. I have since tested it and uploaded it, and it works. Maybe some comments would be great here. Alright, so if GP2 is high, do the flash1 function. If GP2 is low, do the flash2 function. You may recall from previous videos on my experimenters platform, I have set up a pull-down resistor on GP2, and when I push a push button, it will send that pin high.
So here we are back at the breadboard, and once again, just for reference, this is GP2 pin 3, which is set up as an input pin, which is going to control the flash functions. Here is GP1, which is blue, and GP0 is yellow. And the blue and yellow coding is just like on my board. So currently GP2, this green cable, which is an input pin, is being held low. And when I push this button here, it will send a high signal into GP2. And the way the code is set up, it will switch the flash function from low to high. And when it goes to high, it'll go to the other flash function, which should blink this, what was that one again? GP0. So contain your excitement. And now it's blinking the code. So it doesn't check this pin as to whether it's high or low until 10 flashes are iterated through. So we'll let this start flashing. I'll remove my finger. It doesn't change where the code is. And only when it cycles through the next iteration at the top of the void loop, then does it decide which flash function to choose. So while this begins to start blinking, I will push this button again, and not till it returns to the top of the code does it decide which flash function to flash according to the input high or low on GP2. Well, now I think I'm just being redundant. But anyway, I'm really thrilled with this one. So thank you for watching and have a good day. And stay tuned because I'm going to keep going.